June meeting, and tonight we're having the Mayor's Focus Forum. Mayor Berger and the city officials, let's see if I can name them, Kevin Martin, Chief Martin, Howard Elstro, Amy Odom, Gary Sheely, I'm sorry, Steve Cleaves, Vince Lozier, and Chief Hefner, and Saul Allen, and then of course Dave Berger. So we want to welcome you and thank you very much for coming out. Our neighborhood association is just trying to get started again, but anybody can come to our meetings. We meet the second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock, and we meet right here. So please join us. If you're not involved in your own neighborhood, try and find out where that is or who that is. And if not, come and join Lakewood West. We would love to have you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everybody. And I want to also introduce two other people that were inadvertently overlooked. We have two city councilors here, Teresa Adams from the 3rd Ward and Ann Miles from the 7th Ward. And although it was just called the Mayor's Focus, it's really not the Mayor's Focus, it's City Focus. And the purpose is to really share information about current events, answer any questions folks may have, and generally just make certain that we're kind of sharing information on a current basis about everything that's happening in our community. And the way we do that is that each of the staff will come up and give us about 3 minutes. Right, Gary? Well, Gary can have a little extra time to make up for the fact that Mr. Caprella is not here, and we won't have the opportunity to make fun of Mike tonight. But they'll talk about current events in their department, and then you can either ask questions immediately or at the end. So we appreciate being here for the Lakewood Neighborhood Association, particularly in this Neighborhood Resource Center, which we know serves all of our neighborhoods in the community. And I'm sure someone's going to have some comments for us about this this backdrop for our event, because it's a very attractive new resource for our community that we really want to encourage people to take advantage of. And with that, I'm going to start with Amy Odom, the Director of the Department of Community Development, and she has some information to share about at least an event, several events coming up.
Thank you, Mayor. And for those of you, you're aware this is being taped, so you can all wave at your friends via GTV2. This will be posted on GTV2. And so those who are joining us via the miracle of television, this is a fabulous backdrop, isn't it? And I wanted to talk about that this is available to anyone in the community if they're interested in working with LACNIP and becoming qualified to take out and utilize the community cleanup supply trailer. This trailer is actually an example of a wonderful partnership between LACNIP, the City of Lima, and the Regional Planning Commission, who worked to get a grant from the Ohio EPA, which is proudly displayed on the side of this truck, that allowed them to acquire this trailer and equip it with a broad variety of cleanup equipment. In there you will find everything from lawnmowers to rakes to weed whackers to shovels and gloves and kinds of disposables that you might need to take on any kind of community cleanup. If you are interested in utilizing this trailer, you would need to first, and I said qualify, which sounds odd, but before you take this out, they want to make sure that you know how to operate the equipment. So there is a training process that goes through for anyone who would like to use this for a community event. that. You would make an application to LACNIP, and they would take your information, get you trained on it, and then make this trailer available to you at the site you wish to do your cleanup activity. Again, it's a wonderful example of a local, regional, and state partnership that provided some new resources to the city. We want to encourage people to build on the citywide pride activities and other kinds of activities that our neighborhood groups are engaged in improving our community. This is, again, something that maybe church groups, youth groups, and other kinds of citizens may want to make use of. So please do so. And it is, I love that logo, don't you? Do you know that this was actually used about, who are some of our older neighborhood association members? Probably almost 10 years ago, wasn't it? And it was Lima, Ohio, Allen County was the first in the state to use this campaign of Plant Pride, Not Litter. We received a lot of notoriety and awards throughout the state for the use of this image and the program then, and we're thrilled to be able to reinstate it. Other kinds of events that are occurring through the Department of Community Development, I'd like to remind people that tomorrow, which is going to be Wednesday, that the Community Development Block Grant hearings continue. Tomorrow is the first date that we will be talking about the allocations of funds. As always, there is never enough money to go around, and if you attend the hearings, you'll hear a little bit more about that. Unfortunately, the City of Lima may not even be able to utilize these funds, may not be even qualified to use these funds in the next few years because of our size. I think it's important to talk about all about that in a community setting, to talk about what are priorities in our community, how we're going to fund them long term. So that'll be part of our discussion, and we'll be talking about our this year's coming allocations. Other things people I know are interested in is our specified parcel weed cutting program. We cut over 600 lots now. Throughout the city. They are attempt to cut them at least once every month to every 6 weeks. We have completed the first round of cutting, and we'll be starting the second round probably next week if the weather holds. If you have questions about vacant lots in the City of Lima, we invite you to call the city because they might be available to you. Let's quell my favorite urban myth. The City of Lima does not own those lots. They are privately owned. However, if they are tax delinquent, we may be able to assist you in acquiring those and putting those to good use. That's the season for weeds and property use in the Department of Community Development, and we're very busy right now, but we look forward to hearing from you. If you have questions about this program, questions about our weed and trash removal services, or acquisition of vacant property, feel free to give the Department of Community Development a call.
Any questions for Amy? Is there a rental fee? No. There's no rental fee for the trailer. Good. I just saw there was a letter to the editor, maybe this morning or yesterday, that the team from the Budweiser distributorship here in town went out and cleaned one of the reservoirs. That's terrific, and that's exactly the kind of thing that if there are other companies in our community that want to engage in some community activities, this trailer is also available to them. So, Chief Martin, you need a hand with that? All right, that's fine.
Thank you. And in order to try to keep things down to 3 minutes, I am going to really abbreviate a lot of what I have to say, but I will be more than happy to stick around and talk with anybody that has any additional questions after I'm done. To start with, what I brought here is actually 2 crime maps. These are both for a period of January 1 through April 30th. And the reason I use those months is because that's for 2014, that's what we have the most current data or complete data sets to be able to work with right now. We haven't got the May data completely finished yet. But on one side I have those months for 2014, on the other side for 2013, so if anybody wants to compare. And if you look at that, you'll notice that there are some shifting. The light yellow portion is just simply what is city jurisdiction. But then you'll see different colors of orange, darker yellows, and red in these areas, and those the darker the color, the greater concentration of crime in those areas. And if you look at 2013 compared to 14, you'll see some shifting of those areas, and that is not at all uncommon. As we focus our efforts in an area where we have a lot of crime occurring, the criminals are going to start shifting their criminal activity to other areas. And this is something that we actually track and monitor on a very regular basis, so that as the criminals shift their activities, their behaviors to other areas of the city, we focus our resources then and move around with them in order to keep them, if nothing else, even if we aren't able to arrest them, it keeps them from being able to really fully set up shop. And with the shifts in the crime patterns, some people may say, well, gee, you're moving it into my neighborhood, but the reality is, if we were not moving it like that, if we were not focusing on those areas, then not only is it going to stay in the area where it's at, but it's going to expand into all those other areas around it anyway. And we've been very successful. And when I say we, I'm not talking about just the police department. I'm talking about our community. Since 2008 through 2013, we have seen a total reduction in UCR Part 1 offenses, which are range from homicide, rape, robbery, various types of thefts, including auto thefts, burglaries. And of all of those major offense categories, we have seen a reduction of nearly 28% in the total number of offenses that occurred in 2013 versus those that occurred in 2008. And there's really been a very steady trend line downward. For the first 4 months of this year, that has continued. We've actually, for the first 4 months of 2013 compared to 2014, in 14 we've seen actually a little over 18% reduction, continued reduction in the UCR Part 1 crime. So we're really going in the right direction, and we need the community to continue to help us in that regard. And so again, these maps here, when you come up and take a look at them, and we can talk more about them one-on-one if you'd like to after this meeting's over. But again, please stay involved. You know, the good people of this community are winning the fight. You know, we're a long way from being able to say, oh, okay, we've done all that we can do, we're not going to have to change anything. We got to continue looking for new partnerships. We've got to continue looking for new ways to improve upon the partnerships that we're engaged in already, and continue to figure out how we're going to drive that number down even more. But again, you, the residents of this community, need to take some pride in the fact that you are winning. You're helping to get the word out that crime is not going to be tolerated in Lima. Another thing I wanted to speak about just very briefly, and I know Howard's probably timing me, and I'm probably way over time, aren't I, Howard? But another thing I did want to hit on briefly, though, is just to remind people about the curfew violations, and also to remind people about the new pit bull regulations that were passed by council last night. As far as pit bull regulations, those are going to be posted online, so I won't get into a lot of detail about them now. But basically, the law department and city council working together have given us back tools that were, frankly, in my opinion, taken away from us by the 3rd District Court in their ruling last year. And so we now have many of those same tools back again to be able to enforce the regulations against pit bulls, which I have to tell you does two things. It does not only protect the people of this community, though that is, in my mind, the first and most important thing that these regulations does. It protects people from unwarranted attack before the fact, rather than allowing us to just react after. But the other thing it does is, frankly, it protects the dogs, because pit bulls, because of some of their physical attributes, they bring some physical attributes into play that causes them to be very attractive to people who want to use those dogs in criminal activity, primarily guarding drug operations or other illegal operations, and dog fighting. And so again, these tools that council has given us last night will allow us to help keep irresponsible people from being able to use, or I should say misuse and abuse those dogs in those ways. So again, it really is twofold why we are glad to have those tools. And the other thing is our curfew. Again, we are stepping up enforcement of curfew right now, because every year, as we do every year at this time, we're starting to see a slight uptick in the number of offenses involving juveniles, either as perpetrators or as victims, sometimes both as perpetrator and victim. And the best way we have to target that, since so many of those occur after curfew hours. One of the best tools we have to target that is by curfew enforcement. And we do have some overtime monies available through our Law Enforcement Trust Fund account that City Council again approved for us to spend some time back. And we're going to be utilizing that for overtime operations to target curfew. Again, we will primarily be targeting it in these hotspot areas, but if we start getting a lot of curfew complaints in other areas, then we will also look at those areas as well for targeting our enforcement efforts. So again, if you're having curfew problems, please call and let us know. And with that, I will step away. Oh, I'm sorry, John?
The police department building, the former city jail has been vacant for a long time. What is going to be in there now?
Oh, well, we are very excited about the renovations going on there. It's actually going to serve three purposes. The first one is going to be the new land room for the city's computer systems, which I don't know, Gary, if you'd be able to speak on that, probably in a lot more with a lot more expertise than I can. But the second thing is it's going to be a property room, going to give us a lot more space for storing evidence and other types of property, which I will let you know that a couple of years ago the state changed the Ohio Revised Code in terms of the evidence retention schedules, and evidence that we used to be able to keep for shorter periods, we now have to keep for much longer periods. Well, that means we're going to have a lot more evidence to keep. So we needed more space for that. We're going to have that opportunity. And we're also going to have space for a crime lab, which not only will we move the technologies that we currently have in there and give our ID officers a little bit more room to work with, but also it's going to allow us to be able to expand as we go forward and as we're able to obtain monies to be able to purchase new technologies, such things such as touch DNA and some other things out there that will help us to better serve the community by being able to better solve crimes that currently we just don't have available to us now. King?
Now, last night, Mr. Shine was in the city council and brought up the fact that kids are walking in the street. So is there a law in the books about curfew violations on or walking in the streets?
There is also an ordinance against walking in the street, and I will let you know that and I thought Mr. Shine made a very good point, too, because it's not just kids that are doing it, but there's also a lot of adults that are doing it. And oftentimes what we've gotten complaints on is if an officer stops a kid and writes him a ticket, everybody's okay with that, but when the adults get a ticket, they get a little more upset. But we're going to be enforcing that against both adults and kids as well. But yes, actually that was something that I passed on to our majors today already in our staff meeting, and that's been passed on to the officers, that when they're out and about and they see walking in the street violations, to start taking a much stricter enforcement against those violations. Okay, with the handicap vehicles, that's a very good question, and I will tell you that's a little bit more of a troublesome area in that we not only there have to because the way the state law just reads on its surface is that anybody who's operating a motorized wheelchair has the same rights as a pedestrian when it comes to walking in the street, but then there's also under the American with Disabilities Act, they've got additional allowances because sometimes sidewalks that may be passable for a person walking may not be passable for the motorized wheelchair, in which case then they do have the right to operate that out in the street. So it's sometimes a little bit more difficult to make that call on, but again, if we have somebody that's creating a traffic hazard or is doing something that's blatantly in violation of some other term of the traffic code, that we will still most certainly take enforcement action on that. I just want to tell you, Howard, this is not my fault.
Howard, I'm going to let you get there. Some people have been complaining about the little motorized motorcycles. The kids are riding them already in the street. You can't see them. You see them. I see them on Kimmy Street, on 4th Street. They ride at Central. They ride those little motorized bikes, and you can't see them.
Yeah, now if it's something that's classified as a moped, there's a section of ordinances that covers that. But in most cases what those are, they actually fall under the classification of toy vehicle in the street, which is illegal. If it doesn't fall under the classification of toy vehicle and it actually is a motorcycle, then the only way they can be operated is if the person has a valid motorcycle permit and follows all the other applicable laws to motorcycles. So again, when officers, when we get calls on that, we will send an officer out to try to locate the person, and depending on the exact circumstance will depend on what type of enforcement action we take. So, okay.
Thank you. Good questions and very informative. Mr. Elstro, Public Works Director, is here. He always has cheery news.
I do. Well, the construction season is well underway. Most visible project downtown is the recreation of the streetscape of Elizabeth and Spring Streets. This is being done with safety funds. It's a $1.7 million project. It's a little bit ahead of schedule. The official wrap-up date is August 29th, but we're confident so far, as long as the weather continues, it'll be open much quicker than that. It's more than just recreation of the streets. It's looking out for everyone's travel interests: pedestrians, bicyclists, those people that use transit, the buses, as well as vehicles, both cars and trucks. So that's the most visible project. The project that you'll see the least is under the category of stormwater improvements. Excuse me. Our contractor is out and about in the neighborhoods. They're televising sewer laterals, which are problematic. They are also doing some lining. So you'll see the trucks on the street, but you won't see the actual work. But we will certainly benefit by better drainage. I also want to talk about next year's projects. We are really working hard to get everything ready for it, and that's the reconstruction of East Kibbe Street. This is a project that's been in the planning queue probably for about 10-12 years. We finally crowd all the money for it, and we're acquiring the right-of-way this year. Next construction season, we will be reconstructing Kibbe Street from Bell Fountain all the way up to Pine. The last thing I want to mention, because I am going to stay within my 3 minutes, is an opportunity for you and the parks. And I see some faces here that have already participated in the AEP Energy Challenge. And anyone who got online and did the AEP online assessment, would you raise your hand? Okay, thank you very much. And I'll tell you why this is important, and it's easy. If you sit down with your electric bill, or if you sit down and put in the phone number that's associated with your electric bill, and go to the website that we have on these flyers, you will be directed to a place where you can do an online energy audit. You'll type in some information about your house. It'll take you about 12 minutes, and it'll give you 3 pages of ideas of how to cut your energy cost. But also what it does is earns a point for the Parks and Recreation Department, who is sorely trying to scrape together some resources to rebuild Simmons Field, home of the Locos. American Electric Power is going to give us a substantial amount of money towards replacing the lights if we can meet our goal of 750 people taking advantage of either the online assessment, or if you're in the market for a refrigerator this year, buy it this month, because you can get $50 from AEP, and the City of Lima Rec Department will get 1 point towards its goal for a field lighting replacement. And you can call a number that's also on these sheets, and they will pick up your refrigerator for free, or any old refrigerator for free, as long as it works, and send you an additional $50, and the rec department gets another point towards the local lighting. So those are just 3 ways that you can help yourself and you can help the Parks Department, and I certainly hope you take advantage of that. We're very excited about the opportunity, but we need more people to act the next 3 weeks to meet this goal of 750, so we can earn the sufficient lighting grant. So please, if you've already done this, give an extra one to your neighbor. If you haven't done it, please take 12 minutes, go online, take the survey, and do yourself and us a favor. Thank you.
Any questions for Howard?
None?
Okay. Thank you, Howard. Very good. Mr. Shealy, Director of Utilities, and Gary's got a lot on the department plate.
You know, our discipline is the water system, wastewater system, and also the garbage and refuse contract. I'll say in the water system, the reservoirs are full. We're going to be going into the summer months with good supply, so, you know, folks are not going to have to worry about water in their yards or anything like that if it turns, you know, if it turns dry and goes forth like that. We also have the granular activated carbon filtration system on. It's producing a very, very high quality water that meets all of the challenging federal standards and state standards for drinking water. So that was a very, very good investment that we have. Last night, the council gave us the authority to recharge 2 of those units, which is about $800,000. So they're not cheap units to operate, but it is the world of where regulation is going to protect our human health. The other thing I will also say is that in Cairo, Ohio, if you kind of follow the reports, we put a new water line up there in cooperation with the residents of Cairo and the water district, and we're using a two-way communication system to read the water meters. It's a pilot study that we're looking at some of the advantages of that. Literally what can happen is you can show, if the residents of Cairo can walk up to the billing office and go, you know, I think I'm using too much water, or I use more water. They can, in about 3 seconds, they can get a reading off that meter because it communicates with a cell phone off of a mast antenna up there that basically does that. It also tells us such things if a property gets a water line leak in their property and water starts running, we'll get a report the next day that tells us there's high water consumption on that property. We've already caught some properties that basically face that. You know, they had older plumbing when they put the new plumbing in, and it really helps the resident basically be able to manage their water and protect their properties. If we have theft of water, it kind of helps with that. If we shut somebody's water off, it's supposed to be off, and they go out there and tamper with something, it tells us. We used to have to wait 30 days before we go back up and read the meter. So this is what they call intelligent metering systems that cities are moving to help better manage the water system. I'll say in the wastewater side, we are right now under design of a $27 million improvement at the wastewater treatment plant. This is all part of the federal mandates that the Clean Water Act is mandated on this city. This is part of our combined sewer overflow fix. The first area is to rebuild parts of the plant, increase the plant from 53 million gallons of stormwater flow to 70 million gallons. And then eventually we'll be looking at the Simmons Field chamber, that basin up there. That'll get us to the 5 overflows per year that the EPA is mandating. Our systems now discharge somewhere around 30 to 40 times a year. That's what will be necessary to ensure that we meet the standards that are required for us to discharge into the Ottawa River. The other area I will say is in the garbage and refuse side. Actually, next Wednesday, June 18th, we open up bids for the next garbage and refuse contract. We are looking at some various alternatives. Our standard contract we've used for the last couple of years is a 5-year contract. We're looking at building a 5-year as well as a 7-year. And the reasons why we're doing that, because those trucks that run on the streets, they're very expensive to buy. And this may allow us to get a better rate on those, on that amortization schedule that our contractor basically has to fund to put those trucks on the street. We're going to compare that to the 5-year versus a 7-year, see where we get the best price point for this. The other area I will say that we have looked over the last number of years is in the recycling area, the small 35-gallon container. If you've been exposed to it out in the wind, it has a tendency to fall over. And we're looking at, I've asked in the bids from, basically right now we've got 5 vendors that have expressed a real good interest in this contract. And I've asked them to tell us what's kind of new and inventive in the marketplace. How can we solve this blowover problem? And so I expect to see some of these coming back. One of them may be go to a larger container. One of them may be increase the size of the recycling container. Maybe go to a larger container but only pick it up every other week. So these type of concepts are going to be reviewed and brought forth, and we'll sit down with the Utilities Committee of Council and the community and say, we got time to think about how we solve that. Most of the parts of the contract are standard processes we've had for many, many years. Containerized service, we still allow the bulk material to be out on the street, so all that stuff goes away. But we are going to be looking for some feedback in this blow over or tip over process we see with the small recyclable containers. Mayor?
Any questions for Gary? No questions. Wow. Very comprehensive approach. I do want to comment this. I think the general consensus has been that our current waste hauler has really done a very good job for us in this contract. Where before, and I think part of that is due to we did switch trucks. These trucks have far less blowout, so we have far less litter out, but also the way in which they've been operating their crews, I think, has been very responsive to the kinds of issues we have generally. So, but the end of our contract is up. This is a timely kind of cycle for us, and it's good to know that it's competitive. Last time I think we only had 2 bidders. This time we'll have 5, which should give us a better sense of the economics coming out of this bidding process. Saul Allen is here from the street department. Saul's had a great year moving snow.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor talked earlier about doing our part to help clean out the reservoirs, and I have been doing my part to help clean the reservoirs. I go fishing about 3 or 4 times a week, so I do my part to help clean out the reservoirs. But for the street department, it's been a very busy winter for us, and really we're just really trying to recover from that winter. When we're talking about a winter where we would normally have about $30,000 of overtime, we spent about $90,000 overtime this year. A winter where we would normally use probably about 1,400, 1,500 tons of salt, we use closer to 2,300, 2,400 tons of salt. So it's been an interesting winter. You know, at the beginning of the winter, a lot of our guys, you know, I want overtime, I want overtime. This winter, same thing, I want overtime, I want overtime. About midwinter is like, I'll take it. Toward the end of the winter, it's more like I'll take it if nobody else takes it. So it's been a very, and I'm going to say probably about the busiest winter. I've been with the city for just over 11 years now. It's probably been the busiest winter we've had since I've been with the city. The one good thing that I say is we've had very little or small issues with as far as maintenance on our trucks. Our trucks held up very well, and I compliment my mechanics. Especially we've had one mechanic that just started probably, I want to say, back mid-January, that helped out a lot. Very knowledgeable gentleman, but one good thing we have had is low maintenance on low problems as far as our trucks themselves. Going on right now, street department, right now we are heavily involved in the alley maintenance, meaning stoning and taking care of our alleys. Because of the winter, we actually got started late. Normally we start like the 1st of April. This year we started about the 1st of May. Right now we're probably about 2/3 of the way completed. Looking to complete probably end of June, first part of July, as far as having all the alleys done. Along with that, we're also trying, because of the winter trying to run as much as possible 2 patch crews, out patching potholes, making repairs to, say, like when gas make their cuts in the street, we make those repairs. City Water Department does maintenance in the street. We make final repairs to their holes as well. But like I said, we're trying to, as much as possible, run 2 crews, just due to the number of potholes we've had. One comment I always like to make is when we start talking about potholes, I like everyone to not assume that we know about them. If you drive past a pothole, over pothole, doesn't mean I know anything about it. So we do ask that you do make those phone calls. Take time, 419-221-5165, and we usually try to take care of, you know, when you get calls like that within 3 to 4 days. So do take time to make those calls. Also, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll start moving some of our guys over to help Rick Stolley with the Star Spangled Spectacular in the park, helping to clean up that area, making sure there's no trip hazards, driving issues. You know, with the number of people we have in that park on that day, we'll start moving quite a few people over just to help Rick in that area. I'm trying to think anything else. Streetlights. Got a number of new streetlights along Market Street, but I'm going to tell you, but we have had a number of issues as far as those lights being hit. I think as of those lights, I think went in early in the fall, and I think to date we've had 9 or 10 of those lights actually hit. So that's, you know, just want the public to be careful out there. You know, it looks nice, you know, but you know, I don't know if that's attracting people to them. So we just really like to, you know, be careful when you're out there, just to take care of our equipment. That's it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saul.
Any questions?
Any questions for Saul?
Street light out, same number, 419-221-5165. And it depends on what the area is. It may be the city-owned lights, or it actually may be AEP lights, but we can still make that call to AEP if we find out it's an AEP light. So, all right.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
Go ahead.
With the new sweeper you've got,
Uh-huh.
now how often are you running it through the entire city?
We're actually, as much as possible, we're running 2 sweepers. So basically, and they're almost counter each other. Okay, so one may be on the south end, the other one may be on the north end, one may be on the west side, the other one may be on the east side. So approximately it's taken about 3 weeks to make a full run in the city.
Yeah, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Commend you for that.
And actually, you might talk about how it ties to the stormwater.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You know, as far as, you know, a lot of what we're doing as far as trying to keep the streets clean is a matter of trying to keep the stormwater clean, keep that whole system clean. And really, you know, I talk about this all the time as far as keeping those catch basins clean. You know, when we start to get these heavy rains, you know, first thing we get is calls about those catch basins. And the biggest thing is we'll go to a catch basin, I'll have a guy who'll have a pitchfork, and all he'll do is scrape the top of it, and it starts to drain. So, you know, grass, leaves, you know, debris, you know, if we can keep those catch basins clean, that'd be helpful. I always tell people I got one right beside my driveway that I take care of like it's my baby. So, good enough. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Saul. And Chief Hefner. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. I want to help Saul out. If you're driving on Market Street, you see lines like this, stay in the middle. Yeah. There you go, Saul. Public service announcement. Yeah. It looks like the topic tonight's improvements, technology improvements, and things in different departments, and the fire department's no exception. There's a saying in the fire department that we're 300 years of tradition unimpeded by progress, but I've chosen not to make that the case. Couple things have happened. We're looking at new technology. We were funded. I hate to throw money at the numbers out there, but it's kind of impressive what it costs, and I like people to understand what it costs to run a department. We're putting computers in all of our fire trucks, all of our frontline equipment, so we can have instant access to information, get back and forth information from the dispatchers, save the dispatchers time because we'll be able to touch a screen. We don't have to get on the radio, talk to them. They don't have to pick up the microphone to talk to us. A lot of things we'll be able to do will be just touch a screen, on location. I mean, a lot of stuff will save them time. It'll help the police department and give us better information immediately as we need it. That's going to be fabulous. But everything comes with a cost. About $65,000 to put these in the trucks and to maintain these. It's a sizable investment, but I think it's going to be good for the safety of the firefighters. It's going to help as far as efficiency and improve the product that we deliver to you, which is a service. But I'll let you know in about 6 months. This project started about a year ago, and I just put the order in for the computer, so we'll let you know here in about 6 months how it works. But I think it's going to be great. Another thing we've done is we go out and we look for grants, and one of the big ones is the AFG, the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, which FEMA has every year. And we've been very successful over the past 12 or 14 years in getting grants. This year we applied for a grant to put what you don't see here, sprinklers in the fire stations. Don't laugh. No, we have no sprinklers in the fire stations. We don't have a centralized fire alarm system. So FEMA thought it was smart that we do that, so they've funded us. It's going to be about a $250,000 project to do all 3 fire stations. It's something that's needed, It'll protect us, it'll protect you, because as we start looking at the numbers, if something would happen to the Central Fire Station, and fires in fire stations are not that uncommon. I did a little research, and there were, every year there's 30 or 40 of them, some of them significant. If we'd have a fire in Central Fire Station, there's a majority of our firefighting apparatus, all of our EMS supplies and material and response capability, that would put us essentially out of business. Plus, it would cost an awful lot of money to replace all the equipment we have. So it seemed like a smart move. With any luck, we'll have this done here. Well, again, with lots of luck within a year. We have to get it done within a year, so we'll see how this goes. But I'm excited about that project. And lastly, and probably the most important thing, piece of any organization is the personnel. And yesterday we hired the last 2 of the 7 people that we were authorized to hire. And this has been fabulous for us. Our department was growing older, so we needed some younger blood. Firefighting's it's a young man's business. I'm one of the older, I hate to say it, but I'm one of the older guys there, and I don't even get on a fire truck anymore. If I had to get on a fire truck, I'd be retired by now. So we needed some younger people. But also when you hire people, training costs are outrageous. And the fact that we're in the EMS business now requires more of our people to be certified as a paramedic, EMT basics and EMT paramedics. And of the 7 people we've hired, 6 of them are already certified as paramedics. Put this in perspective, we've saved about $250,000 just in training costs. These people can come to work. We have two gentlemen started yesterday, go through a week of orientation with us, and they'll be on the fire trucks next Monday. It's that quick. If we had to begin from scratch, somebody right off the street that had no knowledge, no year and a half, 2 years to train them, to make them fully functional and fully capable, plus the cost, the cost of salary and training. So we think this was very, very good for us. I expected 3 or 4 paramedics. To get 6 out of 7, that was wonderful. Well, we're pleased with the people, and if they ever have to come out and service your needs wherever they are, fire, medical, or just, I've given them the authority to do anything they can to serve the people of Lima. Our firemen for a while, I think we forgot that we're a service organization. We're in the service business. It's not just putting out fires, not just helping sick people or people that are hurt. If you see somebody that needs a tire changed, I've given the authorization. Stop that fire truck, help these people change their tire. I think you're going to see more and more of that. The younger guys are bringing in new energy and just a love of the job that maybe some of the older people had forgotten. So we think we have enough synergy now, some new people in places of authority. I think you're going to see a new, more excited fire department, and some people are just happy to be out and serve you. So that's what I got. If you've got any questions, I might have an answer. Where'd he go? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Ozier, Vince, we're saving Finance Director for last.
Okay, I'll keep mine to less than 3 minutes, and that'll be a good thing. As the Chief mentioned, we've been pretty busy this year with bringing new people on. He mentioned 7 people in the fire department. We just got done interviewing 20-plus people for positions in the police as police officers. We just hired somebody, or actually just made a job offer to somebody in the community development department. We're going to be interviewing some folks for utilities beginning next week. And then we've already hired some folks in utilities too. So it's from an HR perspective, it's been a very busy year, lots of interviewing, which is a good thing. And of course, just completed interviewing people for seasonal activity too. So it's been really busy. A couple things I just want to mention. A couple things that typically get in the news that are HR related. One of those is contract labor. The other is retiree hires. One thing that I will say is that I think the management team at the City of Lima, at least in the 11-plus years that I've been here, has done a really good job of managing what resources are available and maintaining the delivery of service to the citizens of Lima, which is what really it's all about for us. And 2 of the tools that we use to do that have been contract labor when it's necessary and when it's appropriate and when it's cost effective. And the other piece has been limited use of retiree hires. And in every case that we've done that since I've been here, it's actually ended up saving the city money to do that. And that may be a difficult explanation, but if you want to understand that better, you can come up and ask me about it actually after the meeting's over tonight, or contact my office anytime, and I will be more than happy to explain that to you. So that's really all I have. So thank you, folks.
Okay. Thanks, Vince. And lastly, Steve Cleaves is our finance director, and Steve has been active the last couple of days making up some new displays to share with you.
Yes, I'm glad to be here this evening, and I guess I'll follow on with Mr. Ozer's comments on contract labor. Those are, I have a couple of exhibits on that later on. I guess the good news is on finances is that we've had a lot of challenges over the past 10 years, especially the last 3 or 4, and a lot of them have coming from the state of Ohio. They've cut local government funding across the board for schools, townships, and cities, and just about everybody else. And I have some exhibits that show what those cuts were, and I'll start with this one. This shows in constant dollars over the last 10 years just how much money we've lost from the state government. We had between $3.7 and $4 million annually in state taxes, property taxes, local government funds. Over the years, that has been cut from almost a level of $4 million down into 2014. All these other items are gone. No more inheritance tax, no more personal property, no more local government assistance, which was another local government fund. We have the local government fund base remaining. It's $1 million, 1.1. So that's a $3 million cut. But we've overcome that. And what that looks like on a trend analysis, comparing our revenues and what we spent, and we're taking all those cuts, so we have no choice but to cut our spending. And this shows the trend line from 2003 over the last 10 years. The red line is expenses. You can see how we really got into the cutting. We had hiring freezes. We started to pick up some temporary labor where we could. To get below this cut in revenue, and we build up our cash balances to where now we have about a 30% cash balance, which is the best practice for governments to carry that in case there is another recession or a major loss of revenue. The question is, well, how did we do this? I have another chart that this highlights that labor is your prime cost. These are salaries, fringes, and health care. And I've got another bar chart later which goes into this further. But that is 75 to 80% of our cost every year. Our expenses are somewhere between $5.5 and $6 million a year, and that's pretty constant. And they go up with inflation, but we've kept them constant. But we've had to reduce our manpower, which on the flip, not on this chart, on the next one.
This one or this one?
That one. You can see what's happened to our manpower since '99. Let's get up to 2003. We had about 400 employees. Now we're down to 371. So we've had substantial cuts in the last 5 to 10 years. Really steep cuts since the year 2000. So that's what, you didn't have any choice. You have to reduce the labor cost. I think I'll skip that other one. Now, on the issue of contract labor, and this is in bold, but there's lots of comments on cost. It's not cheaper, it is cheaper. This is an analysis of what it costs for a regular employee or a contract employee who has a base salary of $20 an hour. This is the contract $20 an hour piece. This is the regular labor $20 an hour piece. They're the same. The contract company charges an uplift of about, depending on the type of labor, generally between 30 and 39%. Can get a few people up to 50. This uplift pays for things like leave, insurance, those types of overheads. Well, what are our overheads? We have health care, which amounts to, on a per hour basis, $8.41 an hour. We have longevity, vacation, holiday, sick pay, which amounts to another $3.30. We have workers' comp and Medicare costs, which is another piece of money. Then we have all those total up to $35.19. That's like a 69% markup over the base. The contract labor has a 39% markup, and that's it. So the difference is between $27.80 and $35.19. There's no doubt that's less money. That's 20% less, $7.39 less, 20% with the contract labor. Now there's an additional savings on an annual basis. Now this bar chart assumes that the contract laborer works every day that is a city work day. That's really not the case. Some of them are part-time contracts, so this is the maximum that it would cost for that same individual over a year. Again, he's got his base, he's got his the contractor gets a 39% markup for the benefits. It's a total of $49,000 a year, about just under 50. For the city, I got to go back and explain this base. The city employee, he's not working. There's 2,080 hours in a year if you have a 40-hour work week. The contract laborer, his base, he's not paid his base on holidays when he's on sick leave and all those other benefit markups that the regular employee gets. He works over 300 hours less than the regular employee. So there's a savings here. So that's different. But you still have the increase here for our high health care costs and the other markups, which gets the total cost for that $20 employee of a regular employee, $73,000 versus 50 or 49. That's a 33% cost difference. That's a lot of money. Well, why do we have union employees, and we like union employees, and we negotiate in good faith, and I think we treat our employees fairly and well. There's no doubt about that. But when you're engaged in a negotiation, you don't dictate what your health care benefits are going to be or any of the other benefits. And we face mandatory conciliation procedures where an outside third party, when it comes down to it, particularly in the safety services area, they determine what that final settlement is going to be. So you can't be unreasonable. You just can't cut cost willy-nilly. And we've had quite a bit of success with our unions. They have negotiated in good faith. We've got their health care contributions up during those periods from virtually practically nothing to where they're at a 1% increase each year in their contributions. The latest contract is 10%, 11%, 12%. We have a target to keep doing that until we get to 15. We also try to increase the or reduce the benefits for out-of-pockets and deductibles, make those more reasonable. And as a result, our health care costs have been basically flat. They've been flat for over 5 years because of the increased contributions and changes made in the deductibles and such. So we have overcome an awful lot in the last 5 or 10 years. The economy in the city It's pretty stable. I see the tax returns information every month. It's particularly encouraging that the net profits taxes are back to where they were prior to the recession. We still face challenges, particularly from the state. They are redoing the state laws regarding municipal taxation. There are changes pending which are going to reduce the amount of income tax that cities can collect across the state. They're also engaged in a discussion on whether or not you can tax non-residents who work in the city. That would be a disaster. I think everyone knows that our hospitals are about our #1 business here, hospitals and medical. And you know where a lot of those people live. And you know where they work. They work in the 2 hospitals or in the various buildings in town. If we lost that, that would be a huge hammer. We don't expect that to happen totally, but we still have that pressure. So we're in really good shape now, but we need to continue to be diligent, and we intend to do so. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We have, there have been a variety, I appreciate the detail that Steve has developed here for us on this set of issues around how we've managed, that's all right, how we've managed to be able to get through very difficult, what has to be considered for, since the Great Depression, the most difficult time for communities across the country. And it hasn't been easy, but we've done it well, and we have positioned our community well. But I can tell you that there are other opinions about particularly this issue of whether we should be hiring permanently all the time, or whether we should continue with a strategic set of decisions around temporary hires. Our intention is to continue to make those recommendations based upon a long-term view about the city's finances, not based upon a philosophical commitment to a hiring model. And we think that's the responsible thing to do. The other thing I want to emphasize with respect to what Steve said is I really, both for those of you that are here and those that may see this replay, I really ask that you contact Senator Faber and Representative Huffman, and you ask them, you tell them how important it is that local government funds be restored, that the municipal income tax not be eroded, and that the discussion about this, and Mr. Faber frankly is in the lead on some of this, this idea of going to a differentiation between residents paying and non-residents being exempt literally will incentivize people to leave the city. If you think about this, we're not just talking about, as Steve described, a situation in which those that live or that live outside the city suddenly are exempted. Over time, what you'd be doing is paying people to leave. It makes no sense. It absolutely violates every possibility that cities and communities of all shapes and sizes, large and small, would be able to support themselves. So this is actively under discussion right now in the legislature, and it is very important that our legislators hear from us. City has already been communicating with them. We need residents to step up and say the same thing. If you appreciate public service in our community, you need to understand that it has to be paid for. The state ought to be contributing and restoring what they've taken away rather than storing it up in the State House. They've got $2 billion now of our money that they took from us that they're now keeping there in order to pay for state functions. And secondly, we need them to stop the attack on municipal authority and municipal finances. So, any questions about any of that or anything else that's on your mind? Yes, Glenn.
I wanted to slip this in when Amy was talking about the tool shed and the tools. We're having a tool shed training on July 8th at 7 p.m. after our next neighborhood meeting. And so if anybody thinks they might want to ever, rent the shed or take the shed and the trailer and see what's in the shed, come down for that training, and you'll be certified, and you can get it, as you're at your leisure, whenever you want it. So July 8th at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Questions? Well, we appreciate being invited to the Lakewood Neighborhood Association and all the members of LACNIP that are here. Let me ask Teresa, Ms. Adams, do you have any comments, questions? Ann? Okay. Very good. Well, thank you all. We appreciate being here tonight and being able to share with you. Have a good evening.